The New York Times staff members spoke out against Senator Tom Cotton's published op-ed. The New York Times editorial section decided to publish this op-ed, which essentially called for the military to get involved and have this brutal response to the protests that we're seeing throughout the country. These are protests in response to what happened to George Floyd, but more importantly, these are protests about police brutality and just changing the system fundamentally. And so during this meeting, Bari Weiss totally misrepresented the conversation that was taking place among staffers. She said the following on Twitter: "The civil war inside the New York Times between the mostly young wokes and mostly 40-plus liberals is the same one raging inside other publications and companies across the country. The dynamic is always the same. The old guard lives by a set of principles we can broadly call civil libertarianism. They assumed they shared the worldview with the young people they hired who called themselves liberals and progressives. But it was an incorrect assumption. The new guard has a different worldview, one articulated best by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff. They call it safetyism, in which the right of people to feel emotionally and psychologically safe trumps what were previously considered core liberal values like free speech." Okay. Let me just note that her own colleagues called her out on this. She wasn't the only one in that meeting, and several of them, I only chose 2 of the tweets, but there's several of these tweets, you should read them, said that this is not an accurate depiction. One of the staffers says this is not an accurate depiction of the dynamic in our newsroom. And Max Strasser says, "I am in the same meeting that Bari appears to be live tweeting. This is inaccurate in both characterizations. It's not a civil war, it's an editorial conversation, and it's not breaking down along generational lines." And I just want to remind you all that the New York Times has banned Noam Chomsky, okay? That wasn't the new guard. That was the old guard that Bari Weiss is like bragging about as like the free speech warriors. And she's a hack. She's a liar because she doesn't believe in free speech. When she was a college student, she tried to get one of her professors fired because the professor really crossed the line by teaching his students about what's happening to Palestinians and how the Israeli government treats them. She was so deeply offended by that it led to this giant investigation. So real quick, I want to give you the details on that. This is from an NPR piece back in 2005. Bari Weiss, a sophomore and co-founder of the group Colombians for Academic Freedom, which organized many of the complaints, says she felt intimidated by Professor Joseph Massad's class. She faults the overall philosophy that she says he brought into his introductory level class. Now, this led to a full-blown investigation at Columbia. An ad hoc faculty committee charged with investigating complaints that pro-Israel Jewish students were harassed by pro-Palestinian professors at Columbia University found no evidence of any statements made by the faculty that could reasonably be construed as anti-Semitic. Oh, real good free speech warrior you got there, Bari Weiss. Like, it's just, she's so pathetic, and it's just so incredibly lame to try to act as if Tom Cotton calling for our own military to respond in a brutal way to protesters is like a valid opinion. Let's have a debate about it. No, that's not a valid opinion. It's literally unconstitutional. Okay, the vast majority of these protests are peaceful. There haven't been issues with rioting and looting, as the media would have you believe. Most of the rioting that I've personally seen has been at the hands of cops. Okay, so the very law enforcement that Tom Cotton wants to like crack skulls right now actually are cracking skulls. It's happening, right? And that violates the First Amendment rights of all those peaceful protesters out there.
Yeah, one quick comment about that underlying issue, and then I want to go on to Weiss and the New York Times. So you notice that there's a lot of videos of the cops attacking protesters, and you notice that there's a good number of videos about the looting. Now, I don't know how much looting there's been, but when I turned on local news in the last week, it was the same videos replayed 24/7 on a loop. Same video over and over and over and over again. Okay, it's beaming that propaganda into your head. Protesters are looters. They're violent. They're bad. Okay, now every once in a while they say, "Oh, no, okay, fine. We found out a lot of you are African Americans and Latinos, so fine. Not all the protesters are bad." Some would say some of the time, but the video you never see is cops arresting looters. Wait, why are you spending all your time going after the protesters? I saw the video of the looters. We've all seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Why weren't you there actually doing police work? Because you know what? That's kind of a twofer for the cops.
Mm-hmm.
The looting allows them to crack the skulls of the protesters, which is what they actually want. Because the thing that they're upset about is not the looting, is not the property crime. They're upset that their authority has been challenged. Because remember, the protesters are protesting the cops. They're saying the cops are the ones abusing minorities. They're the ones who killed George Floyd. So the cops are like, oh, yeah, looters, keep going, keep going. Let me go hit these hippie liberals and black people, okay? So that's what's happening. Now, in terms of Bari Weiss and that dynamic, is there a dynamic of young millennials who believe that certain folks should be canceled and certain opinions should not be allowed? Yes, that dynamic does exist. Is it sometimes overblown? Yes, definitely. Is it sometimes real? Sure, okay? Now, on the other hand, if you want to criticize that growing part of the culture, you've got to come correct. So, Bari Weiss, you have in the past, and not only in the past, but you've never denounced it, said that the folks that disagree with you on Israel should not be allowed to have an opinion. If they're a professor, they should be fired because they don't agree with you on Israel. How dare they? Don't they know that the correct opinion is yours? Bari, aren't you trying to cancel them? I mean, quite literally. How about the BDS movement? Have you protested the laws that would make it, that would cancel government contracts if you believe in the BDS movement to protect Palestinian rights? No. Canceled. The right wing loves to cancel people. They canceled all black people in this country for centuries, let alone what they're doing now, let alone what they do on the issue of Israel. So don't come crying to us about how you're for freedom of speech. No, you're for being able to publish your obnoxious right-wing opinions and to suppress any opinion you don't agree with. In other words, you're not for free speech, you're for privilege. So I'm happy to hear out any progressives or other folks who say, hey, look, let's be more open-minded, let's publish more things. In fact, in this particular case, I thought the New York Times publishing the Tom Cotton article was not that outrageous because he's a United States senator. I disagree with him 100%. I think his opinion is outrageous, but the people who share that opinion have a lot of power in this country, and we need to debate that. I get to say that, but the Bari Weisses of the world that hate free speech when it doesn't agree with them have no moral authority to question any of us.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.